Welcome back. Well, Nigerians in the past and present have called for a total restructuring of the country, and they insist that it's the only way Nigeria can survive and thrive. Well, a former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Atahiru Jega, has joined calls for the restructuring of the country before 2027, saying Nigeria is a failing state. He insisted that Nigeria would be considered a failed state if it does not provide for the security, welfare, and basic needs of its citizens. Professor Jega affirmed his position on the state of the country's political economy while delivering a lecture on safeguarding Nigeria's future, prioritizing citizens' welfare and security amidst challenges at the maiden convocation of the Bauchi State University, Gadao. He further stated that he doesn't believe Nigeria is a failing state, but we must realize that Nigeria is a failing state, and if we put it in jeopardy and do not safeguard it, then the worst can happen. And we have joining us virtually to discuss this is Mr. Jide Ojo, a development consultant and author, a chartered accountant, and a public affairs analyst. Also, we have Mr. John Akerele, who is a farmer, a political enthusiast, and a public affairs analyst. With us in the studio this morning, we have Mr. K. Fatuke, a CEO, chartered accountant, and a public affairs analyst. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the show. You look nice as always.
Thank you very much. Trying to look nice.
Okay, so
all right, so let's get to our virtual guests now. Jide Ojo, welcome to the conversation. John Akerele, if you're there, welcome to the conversation. Let me start off with Jide Ojo now. Do you agree with the position of Jega that Nigeria is a failing state? Well, he did say it's not failed state yet, so it's not. We can't exactly give up on Nigeria just yet. But is Nigeria a failing state?
There is no, compliments of the season. It's 1 week to Christmas, so congratulations are in order that we have survived this very tortuous year. As far as I'm concerned, Jega was spot on. Nigeria is a failing state, and you don't need any other indices than what is said in Section 14, subsection 2B of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which says security and welfare of citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. So if you look at the state of security of Nigeria, is Nigeria secured? Are we better secured than we were 10 years ago, 5 years ago? Can we sleep with our eyes closed? Many of us have turned to prisoners in our own home. Burglary proofs, eye fence, eye perimeter fence, all manner of electronic gadgets to secure us. There is no bigger, contemporary times, more and more people are buying bulletproof vehicles, including our lawmakers and our executive members of Nigerian executive branch, because they don't feel safe in ordinary car that you and I drive. And that's just a sign that, they also don't feel safe. That's why when they go to their villages in the coming days, they will go with battalion of policemen and soldiers to have them secured. And when you look at the issue of welfare, what is the Nigerian Poverty Index? According to World Poverty Clock, we just managed to exit the poorest country in the world a couple of years back, but we are still not in an enviable position. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria has approximately 133 million multidimensionally poor citizens. That's out of one purported 200 million. So when you look at all of these indices, the fact that we are not doing well on Human Development Index, we are not doing well on Corruption Perception Index. The last time, I think we are 160 out of 180 countries surveyed by the Transparency International. And then when you look at the health sector, what is the infant mortality and maternal mortality rate of Nigeria? What is our mystery index It used to be that Nigeria is said to be the happiest country in the world. But today, Nigeria ranks very high on the mystery index. So everything put together, whichever statistics or yardsticks or indicators you are using to measure a country, Nigeria is not doing well on all of those counts. So what Professor Atayu Jega is just saying is saying the obvious. These are views that have been long echoed at vendor stands across the country. Just pay a visit to vendor stand wherever is nearest to you and listen to ordinary citizens talk about this country. You will know that we don't need the Professor Atayu Jega to tell us that Nigeria is a failing state. In fact, so many, it's a failed state. It's not just failing, it's a failed state. Look at the number of deaths. Every day you hear of bandits, abducting people in their hundreds, abducting people in, just like last week, you had in Zamfara, a community, 3 villages where about 100 people were abducted because they failed to pay the bandits harvest fees to access their farm and to harvest their product. They levied them some millions of naira. Those ones could not raise the money. And the next thing, the bandits came around and abducted people, scores of people in those communities. We have for how many months now, Nigerians who are going on national youth service from Akwa Ibom to, I think they were heading to Katsina or Zamfara. And they were abducted. These are young ladies who wants to go and serve their country. Now they are being released in piecemeal. Whoever has completed the payment of their own ransom will be released. The state has failed those ladies, and we say that Nigeria is not a failing state. So what other indices, what other yardsticks, what other indicators do you want to use to determine a failed state? So if the elites among us are not feeling secured, if people are selling their property to Japa, people will sell their homes, they will sell their cars, and they migrate to Canada, they migrate to US, they migrate to UK. Why are they doing that? These are people with flourishing businesses from years ago. So everywhere you go, it's a very bleak world for this country. And I do not envy, Ashwadi Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who, as we say, he asked for the job, and he said we should not pity him. But while we are not gathering to do a pity party for him, he needs to live up to expectation to lift this country out of the economic morass it has found itself.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with the kind of appointments and the number of people that are just being brought into government, which is not in
consolidation, we totally
with
understand.
The economic situation, I don't think it's fair.
There's a whole lot to talk about, but we have other guests in the studio as well. So let's pass the baton to Mr. Fafatunke, who is with us in the studio.
I'm not accurately.
Let's come to you now.
Okay, if you talk to me, I will act and show you a balance sheet. What's a balance sheet? A balance sheet tells you a picture of what you are. If you are bent, you are bent. If you are straight, you are straight. Nigeria is bent. Nigeria is on its way to being broken. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I agree with my brother, Mr. Ojo. We started failing tragically 40 years ago, sometime in 1983. Chief Obafemi Awolowo made a profound statement that the Nigerian state was heading to the rocks, and he was cajoled, he was cajoled. So 10 years later, we had what you would like to describe as June 12, that ended in a fiasco. So close to 30 or 25, 20 years after, we are marching on the same spots. Mr. Ojo has actually made all the points. We have sustainable development goals. There are 17 of them. Nigeria is indicating red on all. If we are indicating red, that means you are not doing well. Poverty index is high, unemployment is high. We don't have a lead yet, I dare say, on our monetary policy. Yes, Mr. Uju made a fundamental statement that Bola Tinubu did not ask for pity, but we better start to pity him because not pitying him is not pitying ourselves. A pilot at the cockpit says, I know it all, I know I can do it, I can navigate, and all that, and you are a passenger in that thing. And he said, please don't pity me. Wait, look, we need to understand the nature of where we are at. There's cash crunch elsewhere, everywhere. Businesses are voting with their legs. Human beings are voting with their legs. The trade unions, the labor unions are unhappy. Now, please, it is also very important that we situate and understand that this goes beyond Bola Ahmed Tinubu as president. It goes beyond anybody being president of Nigeria. We need to get ourselves together and address the systematic rot that we found ourselves, the constitutional rot that we found ourselves. It's only somebody that will be uncivil will tell you that the position we are at today was not foreseen 5 years, 10 years, 15, I said 40 years ago. Awolowo said it, and we asked him to go shove himself in shades. We knew it was coming. So Bola Tinubu has come with an attempt, I call it bold attempt, but that has not been supported with character. It's not been supported with adequate capacity and understanding and compassion that we expect. Only one thing is lacking. Moses, if you call yourself my driver, I don't have a problem. If you say you know how to drive and show me your driving skills, I don't still not have a problem. But I begin to have a problem if we get into the cockpit and I begin to notice that you are not checking the basics. You are not asking if your tire is well pumped, if you have an extra tire, and you just say, look, let's get in. And you keep on smiling. I think something is totally not wrong. So trust goes out of the window. Trust went out of the window 40 years ago. It's could have gotten better today. And unfortunately, the driver like Moses, who has promised that he was going to be able to take me to my destination, the promised land, as they say, is looking at the compass. And I see north, I see south, I see east, and I see west. And he faces the north and tells me I'm going southwards. I am shaking. I would doubt his capacity. And until we are able to consensually look structurally at the Nigerian system, look at the systemic rot and begin to face it, and tell ourselves the truth that Nigeria cannot be a non-negotiable entity. We have to restructure. I agree with Atahiru Jega 100%.
All right, then. Okay. So, sorry, let's quickly take John's view now. John, we're looking at some of the points stated there by Jega. He said there's a structural defect. The challenges facing Nigeria are structural. He says systemic, and a problem of value orientation. Now, these points can only be fixed from within. Why do you think it hasn't been fixed? And by within, I mean those in government.
Thank you, Moses. And good morning to all of the panelists, both in the studio and online, and good morning to all of our audience. Now, Moses, when some people speak, most of the time, if we even have issues with their personalities, let's not throw away the baby and the bathwater. What I'm saying in essence is, when some people speak, even if you have questions about their character,
let's listen to the message. Is there something we can do from the message? Yes. Jega is one of those voices in the wilderness that is crying. And yet that voice has spoken again, yet another time. If you look at the experience, Moses, Jega was in the saddle of leadership of INEC at a point in time. And he can come out and speak now. Why? Because he stood his ground to make sure that, to a large extent, he delivered a credible election, even though some will not totally agree with that fact. But if somebody of that caliber is crying out now, then it shows that we are at a critical stage as a country and as a people. Moses, the only set of people that are happy in Nigeria now are our politicians. Why? Because they have enough spoil to share around themselves. They are far away from the suffering of the people. As a matter of fact, they don't even know about the potholes on the road. Why? Because of the luxurious cars that they drive that can cushion any kind of pothole. Talk of bulletproof. They are secured. So when you talk of the kidnapping of students, of NYC students, they don't even know about all these things. Why? Because the sound of mechanical generator in their own set is so loud that they cannot even hear the shout of kidnappers. And so, if a call is coming at this point, it shows that in terms of power, we need to restructure. In terms of our structural system of governance, we need to restructure. In terms of our cost of governance, we need to restructure. In terms of the process of electing our leaders, we need to restructure. In terms of our constitution, we need to restructure. In terms of how we go about our modus operandi as a people, we need to restructure. In terms of our scale of preference and level of priority, we need to restructure. In terms of looking at what are those things that are empirical to all of us as a people, we need to restructure. In terms of coming together as a people to dialogue and ask ourselves a basic question: are we truly one Nigeria? That is the question we need to ask ourselves. And the question is also tied to the fact that we need to restructure. Why? So that resources can be shared across different areas. Two, every region will have competitive gains. Moses, gone are those days where we used to have groundnuts, banana, kola nut, yam. We know some region in this country where you mention them, there is something they are significant for in terms of produce. When you mention fish, they will tell you Otukpo. When you mention yam, they tell you Benue. When you mention cassava, they tell you Ogun State. So it means that there are some states, when you mention cocoa, they tell you Ondo, even though the cocoa plantation now has turned to maybe a state or something, or a fallow land. But when you mention some regions of this country, there are some things that they are known for. But as we speak now, those things have been let loose. And so, Baba Mobita and Law, Oyeka Mobita Timbo now, Moses. If you don't know where we are going as a people, let's look at where we are coming from. If we have got it wrong, and it is evident, even to the blind man, Moses, that as a country we have got it wrong. And this is a call back time that we must tell ourselves the basic truth. That it's time we go back and reset. Moses, we need that slap that will reset our brain as a people and as a country. And that resetting is what people are talking about restructuring. So we need to restructure. We need to sit and have a good dialogue. And we need to discuss about it ourselves. What are those principles that guide us as a people? What are the principles that will mold us in electing our own leaders? Because Moses, people who have benefited from non-restructured society, we don't want a restructured society. Moses, when we have a restructured society, your transportation system is restructured. Where will you keep the handbells on the street of Lagos? Where will you keep those ones who are wearing yellow? Where will you keep those ones who collect 100 naira for working of boys?
Mr.
And
John,
if restructuring should come, all of these people will be restructured away.
Mr.
And
John,
some political giants have gains from all of these things. And so if they restructure, many people will not be happy with it. But we must restructure.
You did mention that, like Jega said, restructuring, and then you have said he played a big role during the 2015 election, and the APC government promised restructuring. And we don't know how far that restructuring has been in Nigeria. But then my question is, where has Jega been? There's been, during the election that happened in Nigeria this year, a lot of things have been happening. How come he's calling out for restructuring and among other things that he said? And he also did mention the amendment of the 2022 Electoral Act for a proper election. Do you understand? So my question is, where has he been? He said he played, to the best of your knowledge, a big role during the electoral process when he was the INEC chairman. But then I want to know your thoughts on this. Where has he been? And yeah.
Well, you see, for Professor Atairu Jega is somebody I love so much. And he must have been in hiding. You know, Nigeria is a place where it's for uncommon people. Not for common people. Jega is a common man. And so, when common men like Jega, you don't see them, it's because there are too many uncommon people. And when uncommon people take hold of the stage, the common man will go and sit down somewhere. Jega has been speaking, only that we have not been listening. This is not the first time Atairu Jega has been calling. Don't forget, if you go back to your archives, you will remember that immediately after the election, he was one of those who were pushing for the reforms, electoral reforms. And even till now, he's still speaking that even the 2022 Electoral Act should be reviewed, should be amended. There are still some loopholes in it. And that's one thing we should know as a people, that when we make a particular law, you know, it can be reviewed. Why? Because there are still loopholes. See, those uncommon set of people will always look for the loopholes that they can always, you know, take advantage of. And that is why it is important that when we go through an electoral cycle, we look at the loopholes. What are our gains in this electoral cycle? What are the areas we are having problem? How can the law should be amended so that such will not happen in the next electoral cycle? That is how a right-thinking society does. There are things. So it's not final. You look at it, you review it, you work on it, you review it. How come in your own office? How come you have yearly review of your activities at the end of the year? How come you have review of your programs? Any program that you think is not really productive, you take it out. The one that is working, you improve on it. And that's how a sane society works. So Jega has been speaking only that the uncommon people are more than the common voices. And that's what happens also in the House of Senate, in the House of Rep, Senate, the same thing. You look at the senators. Right. Some of you are minorities in the Senate House. Whatever you say, people only hear your voice, but you're a minority. Why? Because the nays, the A's, we always have it against the nays. And so we must come to that point where we must restructure, where all the nays and A's will look at it, that the people who are even sending into that house are people who are in their right senses, who can think well. Not people who come and buy one stimulator vehicle for themselves, but people who can look at the Constitution. How can we amend it? Right. What can be done so that people can really feel the dividends of democracy and good governance at all levels?
Okay, then. Thank you very much, Mr. Kirile. Now, let me quickly go back to Mr. Ojo there. Now, Jega was part of the Justice Muhammad Uwais Commission, and there were things proposed at the commission. But unfortunately, we haven't seen the actualization of some of those proposals. One of them spoke about the appointment of INEC chairman. And if you remember, I think when Jega was appointed, there was Goodluck Ebele, yes, called for interested parties to decide on if he should be appointed, and he was appointed. But subsequently, we've seen a situation whereby the president single-handedly appoints INEC chairman, and that doesn't seem to have influenced, INEC in the right way. What's your take on this, Justice Uwais Commission? Why do we seem to have disregarded it?
Well, thank you, Moses. By the way, it's not commission, it's committee. Okay. Presidential Committee on Electoral Reform. It was set up on August 27, 2007 by Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. They sat for 16 months, and in December 2008 came up with their report. And it was quite voluminous and quite far-reaching. And Ataru Jega happens to be one of the 22-member committee that sat for those
All right,
16 months.
Mr. Joe, please, I will crave your indulgence. Can you just hold on a bit, hold your thoughts, as I've been informed that we have a caller and would like to take the view of this caller. Please bear with us. Hello, welcome to VOP this morning. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello?
Oh,
Hello?
we seem to be having an issue with that one. When we re-establish contact with our caller, we'll take the call. Please go ahead.
Hello?
Mr. Ojo, please.
Moses, what you need to understand is the paradox of power in Nigeria. Those who are profiting by the status quo are the one we are relying on to alter and sanitize the process. They will never do it willingly because the status quo favors them. You could see that not even members of the Labour Party came out to castigate the mindless purchase of operational vehicles for members of the National Assembly at 160 million naira per unit. It then tells you that everybody is waiting for their turn. It's turn by turn Nigeria Limited. However, I must sincerely say that there are some reforms that have taken place in terms of appointment of INEC chairman, commissioners, national commissioners, and resident electoral commissioners. What happened was not just far-reaching enough. As at 2010, the constitution was altered to allow for financial autonomy for INEC. Aside that, the age qualification for INEC chairman was reduced by 10 years from 50 to 40. And those of national commissioners and resident electoral commissioners from 40 to 35. Because up until that 2010, even resident electoral commissioners were just appointed and sworn in. They do not go through Senate screening. But now you have resident electoral commissioners going through Senate screening. But you ask yourself, what manner of screening takes place at the Senate of Nigeria, where people who are alleged to be card-carrying member of a political party are allowed easy passage and confirmed expeditiously? And that's what happened with the 10 resident electoral commissioners that were just inaugurated last week by INEC. Where civil society were able to establish that these people, 2 or 3 of them had political affiliation in time past. And ordinarily, they should have been dropped because the law has been strengthened to say that you will not and you shall not be a member of a political party. But the Senate of Nigeria just do carry go, and allow whoever is nominated by the president to skate through. It took the civil society a lot of, media blitz to stop, what is her name, who was the presidential aide under Buhari, to stop her from being confirmed as a national commissioner in INEC. I forgot, I think...
Onoche.
Loretta Onoche. So this time around, you could see that Yaga Africa, Serap, Budget, and a number of civil society have gone to court to challenge the nomination appointment of some card-carrying member into INEC. So what I'm saying invariably is about state capture. The laws are there. The law says that whoever will be appointed into INEC should be of person of integrity. But how do you measure integrity? How do you measure honesty? We have in the last set of nominee before the current one, a rec in Adamawa who even was not said to be a card-carrying member of the party, but you saw he descended into the fray and made the announcement that he does not have the power to make, thereby causing a lot of political tension in Adamawa State over the gubernatorial election. And that's why I usually will tell people that law is not enough. Yes, we should have electoral reform. I'm not against it. But we need more of attitudinal reform than electoral reform. Because no matter what you do, you know, I like the motto of the Guardian newspaper. It said, conscience is an open wound, only the truth can heal it. I think that is a statement credited to Uthman Danfodio, the Islamic cleric from Sokoto State many decades ago. So it's about your individual being. Because even if all the laws are reformed, right, even if all the T's and I's are dotted and T's are crossed, but you choose to be a rogue, as we saw in the case of Hari in Adamawa, in the case of the Sokoto resident electoral commissioner, you will still not be able to cure these people of their predilections. Look at the professor, the VC of Imo State University, who was posted to Abia to be a returning officer. And the woman had to fend off a lot of pressure, financial inducement from political class in Abia State to make a wrong declaration. And she insisted she wasn't going to do it. And she stood her ground, and eventually she was able to declare Alex Otti as the governor-elect of Abia State. That woman should be given a national award. And that's the strength of character. You could see the way she was celebrated when she returned to her campus, when lecturers and students hailed her as the heroine of democracy in 2023. So it's about individual character. No matter the electoral reform you do, if people still want to go rogue, they will go rogue. And you know, we have the National Assembly and even the judiciary speaking from both sides of the mouth. So that's the part of the problem.
All right, then. So to wrap up this conversation now, let me come to you now, Mr. Fatunke. Now, what is the hope of restructuring when those benefiting, those in power, and they are the ones that are supposed to kick it off?
Moses, we have parroted. Everybody knows. Those in government currently, those in opposition, we all know the truth. We play politics with the truth. We must come to terms, first of all, to accept the fact that Nigeria is failing. All indices indicate that Nigeria is failing. Can we do something about it? You mentioned the US report. Let's go back to it. Take it wholesomely to look at our electoral Act 2022, which Mr. Ojo has rightly said, a bit of a movement. We need to do a sprint. Take it wholesomely. We need to go to the Orantari reports that we are cherry picking wholesomely. We need to go to the National Conference report itself to start the process of retinkering Nigeria. At the risk of sounding a bit shaking to the right and left, President Bola Tinubu has boldly started some reforms, but I do not see the wind and the character.
Which ones?
Oh, well,
tell us about that.
Okay, I mean, on the economic front, making sure we take the rent seekers out of foreign exchange administration, looking at subsidy and the whole of the subsidy things all through. These are very bold, and then getting young people to begin to look at digital economy, marine economy. These are.
I don't intend for us to drag this conversation, but then if you
these are great.
A school of thought also has it that subsidy is
still
being paid.
Hang on.
If he has fixed that, then
it is a bold reform, but it's faulty in execution. Pure and simple. And the character to do it because people don't trust. So all I'm saying is that one, electoral reforms, systemic reforms. Mr. Ojo and my friend John also talked about the fact that we don't have the people we can trust. Trust has gone off the cuff. This present government should also realize that they don't have the vast majority of the people surrounding them. Now let's look at the low hangers. Politically speaking, wumble and fumble and grumble, we seem to have luckily been able to do something in those states, with Lucky coming back on. But we have a yawning gap staring us in the face in River State that has to be systematically, and that's what Jega is saying, systematically be addressed. Secondly, there is poverty in the land. So while we allow market forces, I don't have a problem with allowing market forces, but there must be some element of intervention here and there. And no matter how you try, if the trust deficits continue the way it is going, example, COP28, the budget thing that we are still looking at, and we are seeing money is being voted for wrong and on priority things. Hey, I am saying the only way out is simple. Accept and put our legs on the brakes, call ourselves together, take it or leave it. I have always been parroting it that December 15th was a very critical day for us in this new dispensation, and one way or the other, Nnamdi Kanu has been okay. Well, it's still that the trial should go on. I thought there has to be a political solution, and I still stand here to say there must be a political solution where all the nationalities will have to come and say, look, this is the way we need to be governed. The system of governance is expensive.
All right.
It is not giving us the direct results. Let us all agree that Nigeria is negotiable. Hey, Nigeria is negotiable. We can do that without necessarily shedding blood. We can talk across the table, all nationalities coming together. And the strength of character that we have in easily the most powerful president on the surface of the earth, a Nigerian president, with all the opportunities that comes to him, now decides to come there with character and compassion. I am sure we are going to be able to get there. Equity, justice, fair play, all right, human rights, that is very, very, very key. And the little we are earning now, very trickle should be going to our political class. The large chunk of the little we are earning should be going to the holoi polloi, and making sure that at the end of the day, they can trust us, because they need us to be able to get in there.
Of course.
Pure and simple.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fatuke. Well, up next on VOP this morning, the widespread of fake drinks looms above imagination in Nigeria as National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, swings into action. Details when we return.